on perfect wisdom, with the divisions of the Abhishamaya. Translated by Edward Conze. University of California Press, Berkeley, Los Angeles, London. Translation of the Sutra. Chapter 31 on relics. Moderately weak. The Lord. If Sacra. On the one hand, someone were to present you with this Jambudvipa filled up to the top with relics of the Tathagata, and if on the other hand you were presented with a copy of this perfection of wisdom, which one of the two would you take? Sacra. The perfection of wisdom. And why? It is not, O Lord, that I lack in respect for these relics of the Tathagata, and it is not that I am unwilling to honor, revere, and worship them. But I am fully aware, O Lord, that the relics of the Tathagata have come forth from the perfection of wisdom, and for that reason they are honored, revered, and worshipped. I am aware that they are saturated with the perfection of wisdom, and for that reason they become an object of worship. Sariputra. The perfection of wisdom, Kausika, cannot be seized, it is undefinable and non-reacting, and has one mark only, no mark. How then can you think that it can be something that should be taken for the sake of appropriation or non-appropriation? Of diminution, of growth, of adding something or taking it away, of defilement or purification. It does not bestow the dharmas of a Buddha, nor does it spurn the dharmas of the common people. It does not bestow the dharmas of a bodhisattva, pratyekabuddha, or disciple. It does not bestow the dharmas of learners or of adepts, not the conditioned nor the unconditioned element, nor the various kinds of emptiness, the perfections, the applications of mindfulness to the Buddha dharmas. Sacra. So it is, then, Sariputra, as you say. The perfection of wisdom is not the donor of the Buddha dharmas to all knowledge. And why? Because it is not set up as twofold, but is non-dual, and holds good also of the other perfections. The Lord. Well said, Kausika, so it is as you have explained. One would wish for a duality in the Dharma element if one were to wish for a duality in the perfection of wisdom. And why? Because the Dharma element and the perfection of wisdom are not two or divided. And what is true of the Dharma element, that is true of suchness, the reality limit, and the unthinkable element. Sacra. I pay homage to the perfection of wisdom to which the world with its gods, men, and asuras pays homage. Having trained in it, the bodhisattva knows full enlightenment. When I am seated on my own godly seat in Sudharma, the hall of the gods, then the gods who come along to wait on me salute me as I am seated there. But when I am not there on my own lion seat, then the gods salute this, my seat, and go away again. For they recall that, seated on this Dharma seat, Sacra, chief of gods, demonstrates Dharma to the gods of the 33. Likewise divinities from all the 10 directions, as well as gods, Nagas too. Nahorigas will come to the place into which a copy of this perfection of wisdom has been put, and where it is repeated and explained to others, and they will pay homage to that perfection of wisdom and then go away again. For they recall that from it have come forth the Tathagatas, and from it has come everything that brings ease to all beings. They will recall that even the relics of the Tathagata become an object of worship only because they are saturated with the perfection of wisdom. That the perfection of wisdom is the essential practice of a bodhisattva, and the true foundation and cause of the cognition of the all-knowing, and that it nourishes it. Therefore, O Lord, presented with the 2 lots mentioned before, I would choose just the perfection of wisdom. And whenever, having taken up this perfection of wisdom and repeating it with a mind pervaded by Dharma, I pay homage to the perfection of wisdom, I do not perceive a sign which indicates its existence as a stable entity. And why? Because the perfection of wisdom is signless, without attributes, is not to be talked about, and incommunicable. And so are the other perfections, and so is everything up to all knowledge. If, O Lord, the perfection of wisdom had signs and attributes, if it could be talked about and communicated, instead of being signless without attribute, inexpressible and incommunicable, then the Tathagata having known all dharmas as signless, without attributes, inexpressible, and incommunicable, would not have, after fully knowing the supreme enlightenment, demonstrated to beings a dharma which is signless, without attributes, inexpressible and incommunicable. But because this perfection of wisdom is signless, without attributes, inexpressible, and incommunicable, therefore the Tathagata, after knowing all dharmas as signless, without attributes, inexpressible, and incommunicable, has, after fully knowing the supreme enlightenment, demonstrated the Dharma to beings as signless, without attributes, inexpressible, and incommunicable. Fairly weak. Therefore this perfection of wisdom should be honored and revered by the world with its gods, men and asuras, and it should be worshipped with flowers. And if someone honors it, one should not expect him to be reborn in the hells, among animals, or in the world of yama, nor should one expect him to choose the level of a disciple or pratyekabuddha, until he finally wins full enlightenment. And he will never be without a vision of the Tathagatas, and will continuously mature beings and enter into a Buddha field so as to honor and revere the Tathagatas, and to worship them with flowers. Weekly medium. Moreover, O Lord, if I had to choose between a copy of the perfection of wisdom on the one side, and even this great trichilocosm filled to the top with relics of the Tathagata on the other, I would still choose just this perfection of wisdom. And why? Because from it have come forth the relics of the Tathagata, and for that reason are they honored, revered, and worshipped, and for that reason also the sons and daughters of good family who have honored, revered, and worshipped it are no more reborn in the great distress of the wretched destinies, but, having experienced the achievements open to gods and men, they enter nirvana in accordance with their original vow, through the vehicle of the disciples, or that of the pratyekabuddhas, or the great vehicle. In fact, the vision of the Tathagata and the vision of the perfection of wisdom are of equal value. Because what is the perfection of wisdom and what is the Tathagata that is not two nor divided? Moderately medium. Moreover, there is equal value in the Tathagata, with the help of a triple miracle, demonstrating Dharma, the 12-limbed Dharma, which consists of discourses, 2 expositions, and in someone demonstrating this perfection of wisdom in detail to others, after he has learned and studied it. And why? Because from this perfection of wisdom has the triple miracle come forth. And so have the discourses, 2 expositions. Moreover, O Lord, there is equal value in the innumerable Buddhas and Lords in countless world systems in all the 10 directions demonstrating Dharma, the discourses, 2 expositions with the help of the triple miracle, and in someone explaining this perfection of wisdom in detail to others, after he has learned it, for the same reason as before. Moreover, there is equal value in someone honoring, revering, and worshipping all the countless Tathagatas everywhere, and in someone honoring, revering, and worshipping a copy of this perfection of wisdom. And why? Because from this perfection of wisdom have the Tathagatas come forth. Strongly medium. Moreover, O Lord, the son or daughter of good family who will take up this perfection of wisdom, too, who will explain it in detail to others. Of him one should not expect that he will be reborn in the hells, among the animals, or in the world of yama, or that he will operate on the level of a disciple or a pratyekabuddha. Because that bodhisattva is established on the irreversible level. And why? Because one would not expect of someone who, having copied it out, learns this perfection of wisdom, too worships it with flowers, that he would be afraid anywhere. It is as with a man who, greatly frightened, waits on the king. If he manages by his good service to placate the king, he will be served upon also by those of whom he was afraid, and will no longer fear them. And why? In the presence of a powerful support there can be no fear. It is just so that the relics of the Tathagata become an object of worship as being saturated with the perfection of wisdom. In this context the perfection of wisdom corresponds to the king. As that man who is supported by the king becomes an object of worship, just so the relics of the Tathagata become objects of worship because saturated with the perfection of wisdom. And also that cognition of the all-knowing should be known as saturated with the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, if confronted with the two lots mentioned above, I would choose just this perfection of wisdom. And why? Because from it have come forth the relics of the Tathagata, as well as the 32 marks of a Superman, the 10 powers of a Tathagata, 2. The 18 Buddha Dharmas, the great friendliness and the great compassion. As they have come forth from it do the 5 perfections gain the appellation of perfection. And also the all-knowledge of the Tathagata has come forth from it. Wherever in the great trichilocosm beings take up this perfection of wisdom, to wisely attend to it, the humans and non-humans who look or seek for entry to them do not gain entry. And all those beings will gradually move towards parinirvana. So great is the wonder-working power of this perfection of wisdom. And this perfection of wisdom has been set up in this great trichiliocosm so that beings in it might do the work of a Buddha. One should expect a Buddha to appear in that world system in which the perfection of wisdom is observed. It is, O Lord, like a priceless jewel which has the following properties. It prevents men and ghosts from entering the place where it is put. If someone were possessed by a ghost, one has only to introduce this jewel, and that ghost would depart, unable to endure the splendor of that jewel. If someone's body were burning with bile, one would only have to apply this jewel, and the bile will be held back, could not get worse, and will be appeased. And the jewel would have the same effect when applied to a body oppressed by wind, choked with phlegm, or suffering from a disease resulting from a disorder of the humors. At night it would illuminate the scene. In the heat it would spread coolness, in the cold it would spread warmth, and wherever it is placed the temperature will not be too hot or too cold, but just pleasant. Its presence drives vipers, scorpions, and crawling animals from districts which they have infested. If someone were bitten by a viper, he would only have to exhibit that jewel, and at its mere sight that poison would depart. This is the kind of qualities which that jewel would have. If those people who are vexed by various disease will but place that jewel on their bodies, then all those disease will be appeased. Placed in water, it dyes that water all through with its own color. Wrapped in a blue cloth, and thrown into water, it makes the water blue. Equally when wrapped in a yellow cloth, or a red one, or a crimson one, or a crystal-colored one, or one dyed in various hues. And it would also completely clear up any turbidity there might be in the water. Endowed with such and other qualities that jewel will be. Ananda. Is this jewel a heavenly one, or can it be found among the men of Jambudvipa? Sakra. This is a heavenly jewel. The jewels of the men of Jambudvipa are rather small and coarse, but the heavenly ones are large and fine. They are as full of all possible qualities as the men of Jambudvipa are lacking in them. In fact, the jewels of Jambudvipa are infinitely inferior to the heavenly ones. If now that heavenly jewel were placed into a basket, then that basket would still remain an object of longing even after the jewel had been taken out of it, since one would remember that that jewel had been placed into it. Just so, in that place where this perfection of wisdom has been observed, these physical or mental ills and troubles, whether caused by humans or non-humans, cannot affect the sons and daughters of good family. And great jewel is a synonym for the perfection of wisdom and the cognition of the all-knowing. One cannot enumerate the qualities of the perfection of wisdom, for they are innumerable. Innumerable are the qualities of the other perfections too, the Buddha Dharmas, and so are those of the cognition of the all-knowing, of the realm of